Let's start with the two feedback. Two people gave feedback on the question, how have you found getting help, particularly when you don't feel able to pay for a service that's trained and that is effective, all right? And so the two pieces of feedback that I had, interestingly, were different sources, but the bottom line, and I don't think these people know each other, the bottom line was pretty much the same. One person said that they had negotiated to barter. I'll help you with this if you help me with that. And it actually was kind of an extended family, like a second cousin, not somebody immediately in their day-to-day relationship, but somebody who was part of a network. So they already knew them, and they had a need for extra support for a problem they were having, or a task they were having to complete, and so they bartered, which I thought was great, because the truth is we really are 3 degrees separate from the person who knows the person who can help us, all right? But what we have to do is develop a network where you can get that feedback. I'm looking for. So the second person, actually, it was a faith group, a volunteer faith group, but they were appropriate. There was no proselytizing. They were not a member of that faith group, but they provided excellent help in a very respectful way. Now, the bottom line that both of those avenues to get outside support at no cost, the bottom line was that you had to be really clear about your boundaries, where the limits were, and without a lot of self-exposure to people potentially that you don't know very well. In the case of the faith group, for instance, just an agreement of confidentiality and an agreement that you remain in charge of. If they have ideas about the process to speed it up or make it more effective, you're open to that, to listening, but because they're giving you help doesn't mean they're coming in and doing it to you. All right, what gets handled, how it gets handled, whether they can handle it or not is up to you. And that when you're trying to decide what the resolution of that item is going to be, not having somebody start giving you ideas that put pressure on you, all right? That they help you to process the environment so that at the end, you can live with those decisions. And I would suggest that if people want to try that bartering or a group maybe that you're part of. I know another person, she didn't email me, but I know that, again, she went every Wednesday morning to a coffee club. And they were kind of like-minded women, about the same age, children, and a lot of other work and responsibility. And at times, people from that coffee club would come and help her, because she really did have an overwhelming, there were so many challenges for that poor person on a daily basis, not just from her own physical or mental health, but from every member of her family, her husband and both her children. It was pretty desperate. So I offer that to you for the use you can make of it. Now, one of the things I would like you to consider is if in Conquer the Clutter, Sue in my book, you don't have a better way that works more effectively for you personally, I would suggest that you insist on giving them some kind of a coaching session, a trial coaching session before you agree to start working with somebody, particularly if you don't know them well, and go through the scaling process, Elaine's scaling process with them, the 1 to 10 in 3 chunks. All right, and 1, 2, 3, those are the things, nobody gets an opinion about that. They're the jewels. All right, and you say what they are, but you predetermine what constitutes a jewel by coming up with the criteria. Now they're allowed to coach you on those criteria. Are you meeting your own criteria? How does this item fit with that criteria? They're not allowed to tell you that you're wrong because this isn't that. That is your decision to make. All right, so that's where our podcast last week about boundaries and limits. I'm not just picking topics out of the air. There's a strategic progress so that you're at least aware of what the components are to come out the other end unscathed. All right, so look up Elaine's scaling process in the book and get them to use that. All right. Okay, so today's information, I'd like everyone to have a better idea of where you fit on the continuum from clutter to hoarding. And even hoarding, even if you meet those 3 criteria, there still are 5 levels of risk. All right. So I'd like everybody to kind of get a snapshot of where they are right now. You can keep this tool. I put it together as a tool. You can keep this tool and check in with yourself periodically, say every 3 or 4 months as you're working on something, to see whether you're shifting down the continuum to less serious, or whether life events maybe have propelled you up a little bit. The more conscious you are of what your vulnerabilities are and own them, all right, and address them, and the levels of risk that you may be living with, the more you're aware of that and conscious of that, the more you're going to be making mindful, conscious acquiring and conscious resolution of clutter. All right, so we're going to drill down a little bit, quite a bit actually, on what actually is happening with each of you when it comes to clutter and hoarding. The information this gives you as an individual about your clutter or hoarding behavior is something, if you choose, you can keep to yourself until you're comfortable sharing it with someone else. You're under no obligation to discuss it with anyone, but know it yourself, all right? You can also ask for help and support based on what you discovered today. That choice is entirely up to you, and I welcome you to put your needs first, all right? Not somebody else's curiosity or somebody else's needs, unless inadvertently you are putting someone else at extreme risk. If that's the situation, then email me, all right, and we'll figure out what needs to happen. As you look around your home right now, all right, how many of the following red flags would you say are there? So the first is, are there areas in your home that can't be used for their intended purpose? Okay. And that means without shifting other things around. All right. If that's so, then tick that box. Second red flag, how easy is it for you to find things when you want them? All right. The third red flag, Does clutter make it difficult to walk through any of the rooms in your home? Fourth red flag. To what extent are flat surfaces cluttered? Okay. So those flat surfaces could be tabletops, counters, and certainly even floor space. Floor space is particularly worrying because of tripping and slipping hazards. All right. Okay. The fifth red flag. When you see things you want, no matter, it's not necessarily buying, it could be somebody has left something really great by the side of the road with, an available sign on it. Whatever way you would be acquiring it, if you like it, do you feel compelled to have it? It's that urgent excitement or that urgent, and well, generally it's an excitement response first, all right? And then we go to our head and we stick onto the logic. And sometimes we come up with, that's just too good to be wasted. What an opportunity. And even if you weren't looking for that kind of item before, suddenly you can think of a purpose for it, all right? I just want to leave you with one thought. If that is something that you're sensitive to, or you're getting a good buy, okay, it's on sale and you're getting a good buy, but you hadn't actually thought of it before, and it wasn't something you were actively looking for, then I would suggest you put yourself on pause. Do your level best. Go to the book, go to Conquer the Clutter, and look at the conscious acquiring chapter. All right? Put yourself on pause, because if it is a good idea, it will be a good idea tomorrow after you've slept on it. Okay? Being able to take a step back and put yourself on pause is a huge skill for people to start developing. Okay? Now, how many of those boxes, those 5 red flags, did you tick? 5, okay. All right. So let's talk about, you can put your hands up, you can do one,
all of them.
All of them, okay. All right. So welcome to the podcast. Probably most people have ticked at least a few, all right? The degree to which you tick all of them consistently, all right, let's talk about that in another podcast, all right, because we don't want to leave you with the 5 red flags. That could mean that you're living at a heightened risk, all right? Okay. So let's move on now to the 10. Let's find out of those 5 red flags, what the component parts are. Where are you vulnerable? What types of things are you vulnerable to? Okay. Of the 10 most common, things hoarded, how many of these boxes do you tick? Paper, especially newspaper, magazines, flyers. Usually the flyers, people tell themselves, I want to have a look at it just to see if there's anything. And then they don't get around to recycling it. Once they put it down, it kind of grows roots, all right? And it stays there. So maybe if that is a source of problem for all, we've got a lot of people here today. If that's a common thing that happens, let me know. Send me an email, all right? And we'll do a podcast just on no more just for now, all right? Okay. The next item is things that are used in everyday life that don't get put away, like food containers or laundry, clothing, shopping, grocery bags, mail, all right? One of the things I'm going to ask you to consider doing your level best to turn around is when items like that, like laundry, clothing, linens, towels, for instance, please don't leave them on the floor. If you are not at a point right now where you can summon up the energy or the focus or whatever it's going to take, the motivation, all right, to put them away or actually go and put them in the laundry, if they should be there, they deserve to be there, don't leave them on the floor, because that causes more accidents than anything else. Getting your foot caught in something or stepping on magazines. And do you know how slippery magazines are? Do you know how many people have broken a hip slipping on a magazine? All right. Please don't leave anything on the floor. All right. That will decrease your risk level probably 25%. All right. Now, I'm not talking about furniture. I'm talking about peeling off your clothes at the end of the day and they stay on the floor. The third item, excessive recycling materials. So the intent is there to recycle, but they don't get recycled. All right. It's too far to if you live in a multi-unit dwelling, it's too far to the recycling room. I'm going to let it pile up. But you know where you let it pile up? You let it pile up at the door, because that's where you're going to go out, and then you're blocking access. All right. Remember, wherever you're going to store these things, when they're on their way to somewhere else, garbage, recycling, please, please don't interfere. Don't contravene the local fire code. All right. So you need to have two choices for free, clear access in and out of your residence. Now, for many people who live in an apartment, that would be the balcony. So don't put that plant stand in front of the door to the balcony, because if you need it, all right, you're already in a crisis mode if you need to be out on the balcony to leave your apartment. And for sure, whether you've got a home with a big entrance hall or whatever, don't block the door, the access to the door. Find another spot. Find the bottom of a cupboard. Get yourself a shelving unit. You can go to Canadian Tire or Rona or whoever, and set it up so that you can put your recycling, your big recycling, red recycling container on one of the shelves. Keep it off the floor and away from the entrance and exits. Okay. Also things like biodegradables, so glass products and plastic. So those are all recycling, okay? And I know it doesn't help that the garbage only gets picked up once every 2 weeks. I know that. I'm fortunate. I live with somebody who takes care of keeping track of whether today is plastic day or, you know, biodegradable day or tins or paper. It's like, it feels like playing checkers. I don't know. Clothing is big, particularly, oh, this is so sad, particularly if it touches a place in you of deprivation. I have known people who don't feel worthy enough to actually wear the clothing that they buy, but they dream of, they imagine themselves in it. And quite recently said to me, it's more important to me to have it than to use it. I know I have it, all right? And so clothing is a big trigger because it touches so many parts of our psyche, how we present ourselves, how we wish to present ourselves. All right. Plastic bags, like the world is suddenly going to become deficient in plastic bags. It will be the last thing on the face of the universe. So Give yourself a number. What's reasonable? Track it for 1 week. Track how many plastic bags you actually use, and then keep twice that many. And then the next week, track and see. And get yourself down so that you know what you need. And try to do that with as many things as you possibly can. All right, particularly when there's a lot of turnover and there's no shortage of them, of the incoming of them. All right. The other thing too, one of the top 10 are sentimental things that tell a story, that in some way are usually a happy event, but a significant life event when it's not happy. But so it's all of those booklets. You know, you go to a play and they give you the little book, all right? Or then there's the ticket, and then there's your parking. And so you keep this like it's a little shrine almost, right? The thing is, ask yourself, where are you keeping those things? Are they in drawers? Are they in boxes? Because the things that are most important to you are the things that you want to have out. You want to enjoy. You want to get the joy and the feedback from it. The other thing to keep in mind too is the memory of that event. Okay, you already own that. It's here. And if you think you need those things to remind you, you don't. We make ourselves dependent on signals to remind us, like somehow we don't have the memory of it right here. If you don't make yourself dependent on this thing that's in the bottom of a drawer that you're hardly ever going to see, if at all right, something else will trigger it, because that's a rich memory that you want to hold on to. There might be 10 other things that will trigger you and make you smile. You don't need all of the paraphernalia that go along, okay? Okay, the next thing that are on the top 10, mechanical objects like car parts, electronic equipment and components, tools, nuts, bolts, screws, building materials. Well, building materials right now during COVID, when there's a scarcity, okay, it's kind of ironic, that are kept just in case. All right, it's the just in case. It's the fear that you will not be able to overcome whatever setback or whatever challenge in the moment when you need something. And accept it's true, all right, that when you keep things, you've got them, but you've also got them, all right? And then if you let them go, I can guarantee you one of the 25 things you put out this week, all right, you will need within 3 weeks, but it will not be a cataclysmic event. It won't be. Somebody else will have it. You'll be able to borrow it. You can always buy a cheaper version if it's absolutely essential. You can rent it if you need. All right. Now, obviously, I'm not recommending putting everything out. If there is a reasonable chance. The other thing you can do is offer it to somebody who's in your network on the provision that if and when you ever need it, you've got first dibs on borrowing it. So it's like shared storage. 8 is a biggie, all right? Paper and newspapers, flyers, magazines, that's a biggie. Clothing is a biggie. This is another biggie. Craft supplies, craft products or art supplies, things like wool, fabric, all of the little pieces to do whatever crafts you like to do. and you keep them for use in the near future or for a potential project that is farther out. What I ask people to do is pick a project, a current project. If you're a crafter or you like to tinker with things, with mechanical things, keep one project and all of the things that you need, all of the product that you need for that one project. And also one project in the wings. These are the engineer's brain. These people have the engineer's brain, where they're crafters, they're artists, they're creative, they're think outside the box type people. They see the possibilities. When they see something, their brain just goes like, bing, ding, bing, ding, 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 bing. Oh, I know what I could do with that. And they can. They have the capability to do it. They know they do. And they love the challenge, and it just really excites them and feeds their energy level, all right? However, there are lots of possibilities, but if you don't want your home, your environment to be possibility central, instead of this is my home, this is where I work on what I love to do, then one project active, all right, and the product, all the product you need for it, plus one in the wings, all right? If you keep seeing other projects, know two things. First of all, you can make a list, all right? Or you can use your phone and take a screenshot of the next project, or the thing that is your inspiration for a future project. Store them on here. Store them in writing, all right? Don't bring anything more than your current and one in the wings, all right? Don't bring that home. I promise you that, because I've learned this the hard way, I promise you, based on experience, whatever you think you are never going to see again, it's too good to miss. When you're ready, when it's that project's time to come forward, to be now, or to be in the wings, the same or better will be available to you. The other thing to keep in mind too is that time delay between projects, between the lineup of projects, all right? And it could be tasks, it could be repairs on your home or your apartment. That time lag, you're changing in that time frame. Okay? Your aesthetic may change, your need may change, your ideas will evolve. You're creative people. Right? You may not see that project quite the same way when its time comes to become active. So when it's in the wings, that's when you have the fun of going out and searching for exactly the product you need for the task that's in the wings. The ninth high volume, high incident type of item to be collected is furniture and household work-related items that are held onto because the individual has adopted a belief that it's too good to get rid of. All right. They may even go as far as, I'd like to pass this on, but sometimes they create a stumbling block for themselves by saying, but it would have to go to exactly the right home, all right? And with somebody who would really appreciate it as much as I do. And all of that is reasonable. Here's the thing though, quite often we don't know those people, all right? And the people we would like to offer it to, they either don't share our aesthetic, they don't need it, or they don't have space for it either, all right? And so if you pick, I had this happen, I know you're sick of hearing the story of the dining room set, but that and many, 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 many other instances. If you pick a charity or a nonprofit that really lives the values and the beliefs and the view of life that you have, the things that make you you, all right? The people who are part of that charity and who come there, all right, who are part of that network, they're your people, all right? They are as close to, as strangers, people who think, feel, see, and appreciate what you appreciate. Here's the thing that I really like about it, and you're their best chance at ever having it quite often. I often think of, I'd love to know what, just have, not know them, but just have a glimpse of the people who are sitting around our dining room table and how they're, you know, that they're sharing their lives, the good moments, the bad moments, and the, you know, the boring moments. I'd love, I just, that gives me such a little jolt of joy to think that I trusted that sending it off there would meet my need and how much it met their need. So I offer that to you. That's not just hokey gobbledygook, all right? That really does happen. I get to see the people when you donate. I get to see the people who get that quite often, or the organization that is going to sell or pass that on for free. Okay, the 10th item that is high in popularity for hoarding are animals. Right? So whether that is the milling of animals, or whether that is the having a shelter where you bring animals in that aren't being cared for by someone else. I know that there are numbers that are allowed by law in most municipalities. However, the definition of animal hoarding is that the number exceeds your ability to be responsible for. It's not just feeding them, it's veterinary care, it's accidents, it's neutering, spay neutering, all right? So think about that as well. We have a no-kill shelter in Lanark that a lot of our donations go to twice a year. And I sometimes even keep apart some of the really great stuff that's donated through virtual consulting to bring there. We have a trailer and we bring it up the day before. And they live by donations and the money that they make at these community sales. Okay, all right. So if you think it would be helpful to you in a future podcast, we can look closer at what types of items you're drawn to, because the types of items you're drawn to quite often speak about the comorbidities that you might be living with, whether that's depression, anxiety, OCD, or any other, all right? So with the feedback now from the 5 red flags and the 10 most common things hoarded, where are you now? How many of the 10 would you say comprise what you're looking at right now as you look around the room you're in, or you think about the rooms that you haven't remediated? All right. Is that 10? Okay. All right.
It's not.
9. Well, it is in 10. We'll celebrate. So ask yourself, what can I do? How can I apply different thinking, different logic to making decisions? Because if you're joining me today, all right, you're joining me because you're living in a situation or you love someone who lives in a situation where the stuff, item by item, might trigger them to want to be kept, but they don't want to live in the circumstances. It's like a wall, all right? You're not here to celebrate being overcrowded. How can you apply different logic that you can also believe in and that might work better for you? Okay, all right. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the three paths and try to figure out which path you're on, or parts of each path. All right, so under the right pressure, all right, this is a path. Hoarding is a continuum. Many people move down to less hoarding, and then something will happen and they move back a little, then they move back. It's a fluid continuum. The great thing about it, though, is that you can move down to just normal clutter or solving the clutter. If you can move one way up the risk factor, you can also move down. So your environment, again, consider your environment and answer this question. The accumulation that you have is what most people would describe as excessive. Is that true? Okay, if so, put a little tick. Now, it doesn't matter what the items are or how much they cost, all right? It could have been a great deal. There may be too many great deals for the capacity of your environment to hold it. Might be a luxury item, but there are too many of that. And it's about the space. It's about the risk that you're living with. The second is you're unable to manage, okay, the items and locate them when you need them most of the time, all right? And there are too many of them, and they are perhaps chaotically stored or not effectively stored so that you can't put them in their permanent place, even though you have a pretty good idea of where they should go, all right? And that becomes a barrier. That just adds to that sense of being overwhelmed. Some or all of the living spaces can't be used for their intended purpose, right? So people have to regularly take adaptive action to access or use the space in the home. Adaptations are things like walking on objects, stepping on them, stepping on or over items, climbing over things if the piles are higher, or you need to go over the pile to get to something that's behind it. Excuse me. Or there are things on near the stairs because there are so many things that you now have a fair narrower access up and down your stairs. Any of those true? Okay. The third criteria, one or more people have become concerned about the environment as it exists right now. Or if they're not actively concerned, now the one could be you. And I have to say that if you're with me today, you are concerned. All right, so that box gets ticked. But I'm raising this point, what I want you to realize is the other who is concerned can also be and affect your life quite significantly. Concerned family member, all right? A concerned friend, concerned neighbors, concerned landlord, the local fire department officials, local bylaw, child protection, animal protection, your home insurance provider, or your mortgage company, all right? And so even if none of those people are actively concerned, if they knew the true condition of the property, they would have a legitimate reason to be concerned and a legitimate right to be concerned. Because most of those people, except for perhaps family and friends, you get a service or you are responsible for adhering to policies that are meant for everyone in order to manage risk, all right? So where is the line between cluttering and hoarding? Well, generally individuals who have clutter have a lower level, much lower level of accumulation. That's number one, all right? It doesn't interfere with their life. It might be mildly annoying that you have the occasional pile somewhere, or the dining room table has become the sorting table. That might be mildly annoying, but it doesn't interfere with your life. And the other thing too is generally an individual who clutters finds it a whole lot easier to make the decisions to resolve it. All right. Now, there are lots of ways to resolve clutter. We're not going to go into them right now, but if you have a copy of the book, they're all outlined with little snapshots of ways to use them effectively. All right. I think, though, that we've got quite a few questions, and I think in the 15 minutes we're going to stop there, and next time we're going to talk about the comorbidities. But keep this paper with the ticks, okay? Because at the end of it, I want us to have a really good idea of who we are, a really good idea of who we are in this situation we're living and what our vulnerabilities are. Okay, so we'll open up the chat for everyone. All right. Yes, like you mentioned way back, too many can openers, vases, decanters, serving dishes. I pay real estate to store. Yes, I know. That's another thing. This really raises the question of the issue of the storage unit, all right? A storage unit is only really helpful and effective if you use it for a defined purpose, a defined period of time, and it isn't sort of off into the future. I use storage units quite a bit for a time-limited harm reduction approach when the individual has been hoarding very severely for a very long time, and it would be irresponsible as a mental health professional to force the issue into so many decisions, and their safety is at risk. All right, so the fire department, generally, if I'm working with the fire department, well, I don't work with them, I work with the client and the fire department, generally then we will use it in order to lower the risk, but it is for a defined period of time. Ask yourself this question. If it's in storage, how is that part of your life, and how can it be so important to you that it doesn't swap out for something that you prefer less that's in the house? When is it ever going to get to be part of your life? Is there an inherent flaw in the logic that that stuff, I don't doubt that it feels important. I don't doubt that for a second, all right? But feelings aren't facts. All right, feelings are not facts. Factually, ask yourself, everything that's in storage is so important that you're just going to leave it there ad infinitum? Okay, let's talk about that in future podcasts. I'd be interested to hear from each of you as to whether you have a storage unit, and then tell me a little bit about it, the kind of things in it, and maybe we'll design a podcast episode on that, because I want the topics to be relevant for you. So from an end, is the list in the book or somewhere so I can print and go over it again? Yes, the list is in the book, but it's not broken out into bullet points, all right? But if you look at the text, it would be fire department, mortgage, insurance, friends, neighbors. It will be there, absolutely. And you can use that, you can make that into a document that you want to check in, all the 10 items as well. The 5 red flags are definitely in the book in format. Right. Lisa, to everyone, I used storage for a while, but I knew even while doing it that it was just, yes, good for you, Lisa. Good for you. And it was just an expensive way to avoid making decisions. Stand up and take a bow, Lisa. Stand up and take a bow. Respect yourself, trust yourself, but be worthy of the solutions that you want. There is nothing you have, nothing, that is more important than you. All right? You comes first, and you deserve to have the money that storage unit costs you. You deserve to have that enrich your life or your financial security. Some of it you can even use for the product of the task or the project that's in the wings. Some, okay, put it to good use where you're going to get joy and meaning out of it. All right, part of my basement is like a storage unit, but I'm working on getting rid of things. Okay, so Patricia, and that's not a bad idea, all right, in the interim. The great thing about putting shelving up, you can always sell the shelving later. Everybody wants shelving. Is so that you can put the things out that you have. Try to lay them out. Take boxes, undo them, lay the things out, all right, so that you can see them. And make that Elaine's scaling process. Follow Elaine's scaling process and then go through those items according to the criteria, and try to put as much as possible like-type items together, because sometimes the seminal question is, how many do I have, and which of the 5, 10 things I have of that type are the best representatives of who I am and what I want for myself. And so many times, if you look at something, a collection of things, and not actually a collection, it's just, and say, for instance, sheets, all right, or pillows or something like that. And you look at me, oh yeah, but I know I've got these somewhere in there, so I can't make a decision about this. That's why it's a really good idea. Lay them out, have a look at them, and put like-type things together. And then even, you know what? even if you can only decide about sheets today or pillows today, the making of that decision allows more space for you to open another box and put that stuff out. So you get this constant moving forward. Okay, that's a good idea, Patricia Ann. Okay, so your voice is quite clear and you enunciate very well. Thank you so much. You also have a kind voice. Thank you. From Kathy, I think you're, okay, it would be great. Yes, recommend getting a professional headset for better audio quality. I do have a professional headset. That's a great idea. Voice is reassuring. All right. Glad to be here. Best wishes to Elaine and all for shared compassion care ideas. Good idea to chart programs on a scale. It is, because you can use that scale, all right, moving forward to chart. And say you do a random use of the chart, of the scaling process, all right, and you find it works really well today, then you realize that in this situation, I'm managing my stress, I'm managing difficult life events better. What am I thinking? What am I doing? What are the component parts that are making it easier for me to do that? And then later on, I might find that that chart tells me I'm having more difficulty with the process. Well, what does that say? That teaches you that when you're under certain types of duress, you're not going to function as well. All right. Here's the great thing about that. Tomorrow's another day. You don't have to carry that forward. If you're having a really bad day, get in the shower and shower it off. Just let it go down the drain and reboot, start over. All right, you can't change the past. And trying to change the past, understanding it's one thing. Trying to change the past is a waste of today and the future. Live forward. That's our motto. Live forward. All right. Okay. You ticked 3. Well, that's pretty good, Kelly. That's pretty good. Okay, there we are. Okay, my mother was an artist and a hoarder, and I'm getting as bad. Now she is dying, and I had to empty out areas in her house. I've brought so much home, and yes, everything I look at is valuable stuff. I put things aside to pass on, and then I pull them back in again. You know, right now, you're at a very, R&R, you're in a very unenviable position of grief, all right? So if you have a basement, I wouldn't put them down there pell-mell. I'd get some help, and I would pack them away and label them. I keep the ones that are treasures. I have my mother's wedgies, her purse, her glasses. I think I told you the story about why do I keep those in my shelf in my cupboard, because for the 2 years while she was dying of lung cancer, I had to find those more often than I had to find anything else. It was, where are my shoes? Where are my glasses? And I thought, they're an emblem of the love and the care that I returned for the love I got. Okay, and I have one vest that my mother knit for my father with her printing along the collar of it, my dad's name. I have other things I inherited in the way of furniture, but this may not be the time, RR, to make those decisions. All right, you're grieving right now, and the grieving will get worse. So find a way, in a semi-organized way, at least a semi-organized way, to keep the things safe and pull out a few things that are particularly important to you to give you comfort. All right, and if you need some help with that, send me an email, all right? And our thoughts and our prayers and our strength is with you. This is a difficult time, and I'm really sorry. Okay, all right. One new message, and then I'm going to let you go. All right, where is it though? Thank heavens we can, oh, I see, all right. There was a message. Okay, there's a message missing. All right, everyone. Thank you for coming. We had a house full today. This is great. We're going to continue on talking about who am I as someone with clutter. Our reason there is not to adopt labels. It is not to punish yourself. It is not to come out of this feeling less about yourself, right? This is about simply self-identification. I have blonde hair, I have blue eyes, I have my mother's nose, I have my blah, 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 blah. Who am I? Because until I know who I am, the parts that work really well, and the parts of me, and we all have them, all right? The parts of me that don't work so well for myself, all right? Until we know ourselves, we don't have the formula to know to avoid something that makes us vulnerable, or what to look for that keeps us self-regulated, stable, and able to manage the way every single one of you today want to manage. I'm going to say goodbye for now. You take care. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
You're so welcome.